I'm Savannah Hugdahl. I'm the Public Communications Media Specialist for Gloucester County, and welcome to the Current Conversations podcast. This is a podcast from Gloucester County where we just talk about different things within the local government, projects we're working on, things that we think you might be interested in. And today, I've got Steve Wright with us. He's Deputy County Administrator, and he was actually helping oversee the library renovation project that just wrapped up. So welcome, Steve. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Savannah. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time today. Let's start. I know you've been on the show before, but I always like to introduce people in case we have new people jumping into this episode. Can you tell me how long you've been our Deputy County Administrator and what is your favorite part of the job?
Sure, absolutely. I started the position September 1st of 2022, so it's been a little over a year and a half. My favorite part of the job is that it's never the same thing twice. Every day is different. It's very eclectic. And I love the opportunity we have to interact with the public and also figure out what their needs are. So,
yeah, because your departments tend to skew more towards public services, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'm over all the community services departments. So that's Parks and Recreation, libraries, community engagement, which you're a wonderful part of.
Yay.
Probation and pretrial, animal control, emergency management, and I'm also the liaison to the Department of Social Services.
That's definitely a mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you oversee a lot of our opioid abatement funds as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
correct.
All kinds of things that he does on a day-to-day basis. So you just said, but the library is one of your departments, right?
Correct. It is.
Awesome. So I know people come there to check out books, but what other kind of services do people get at our libraries?
You know, being a 21st century librarian, and I actually worked for Virginia Beach Libraries a few years ago, really the library, it's all about place today because people can access the materials online, they can get ebooks. So a lot of people don't necessarily come into the library to check out hard copy books. But they do come in the library to meet with other folks, to take really good classes, and people should check out the kind of classes we have at the library because it's a very eclectic mix. I mean, you have everything from beach blanket bingo, trivia games, to individualized technology and computer classes, to story times for kiddos, which is a pretty common one. And then, of course, we have a community room that a lot of community groups use with regularity. That's pretty much booked all the time. And that's just a variety of different community groups that come in and use that space. So the library is so much more than it used to be. It's much more about a meeting place, a space for people to get together, and really it's a community center today.
It's really wonderful. I actually don't know if you knew this, but when I was growing up here and I was trying to get volunteer hours for, the honors clubs, mm-hmm. I was a bookshelver at this library. And I did all kinds of the teen programs back in the day, but it was really exciting to come back in as an adult, and realize, they have cooking classes, mm-hmm. they have basket weaving classes, they have all kinds of things meant for me even now after, I've outgrown some of the storytime craft stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the cooking classes. We actually have our own library chef who does videos, and they're posted on our YouTube channel as well. But he's actually the spouse of one of the full-time workers of the library. And he's a great guy, does some really good recipes, so everybody should check that out.
Yeah, if you're listening, Chris, shout out to you. You're the best.
Mm-hmm.
So how were you involved with the library renovation project?
So in essence, I was the project manager / contractor liaison for the admin office, for the administration team. We actually hired the architect. We continue to retain him so he could be the project manager throughout the whole thing. But I was the, kind of the liaison to the contractor, to our architect project manager, and kind of troubleshooted everything that was happening and making sure we were using the money wisely, that we were on time, and that everything was getting done, and then making any connections we needed with the community as well.
That's really cool. Is that any kind of thing you've done before?
Yeah, actually, when I was with the city of Virginia Beach, we did a $17 million joint use library construction project.
Whoa.
And I was the finance manager for the library system. So I was the one sitting at the table, making sure that we were collaborating effectively, the money was used properly and in the way we intended for it to be used. So yeah, I've definitely done projects like that before.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about what the library was like before we went into this. When did the county kind of adopt the layout that the library had, and what were some positive and negatives of that space?
Yeah, absolutely. So the previous layout was adopted in 2003 when they renovated the space to put the library in there. It actually moved down the street from the Stewart building where we're sitting. And so they did that layout then. From what I've been told, it was designed by an architect who had done a lot of fast food restaurants.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how the tie-in was there,
Yeah,
but
that's
I mean,
so
it's
similar to libraries.
yeah, very similar. It had a very interesting aesthetic to it for people who have been there before and haven't yet been to the new layout. There was this really interesting architectural feature that looked like a UFO cut in half above the circulation desk, which was right in the middle of the front of the space. The problem with that was, it wasn't particularly user-friendly because the way they configured it, the staff had their backs to the patrons as they were coming in. Mm-hmm. It took up so much space that there wasn't a lot of seating in the front area. Also, the shelves for the materials were much further up. Mm-hmm. So again, it really limited the space that was available at the front of the library. One of the problems with that was staff could not easily see what was happening in the back of the library, where there was a lot of seating space at that point. Yeah. So they constantly had to kind of walk around, make sure people weren't doing anything nefarious or anything they shouldn't be doing in a library. So that was kind of the nature of it. And then in the back, one of the aesthetic things was there was this big curve in the back, and the rooms kind of followed that curve, which it was aesthetically beautiful, mm-hmm. but not efficient at all in terms of space utilization. So when we looked at this and when we started to design, we wanted to do essentially three things. We wanted to make it more utilitarian for the patrons, a better space where they could have more space to spread out, more space to do research. We could have more space for programming. The other thing was we wanted to increase kind of the safety and security of the children's area.
Oh, yeah.
It was open before, and now it's behind these beautiful glass doors, and the kiddos have their own space. They can't just wander around the library unprotected.
And if they want to be a little louder, there's walls to help with that.
Exactly. Yeah, and the story time room as well was open before, and now that's enclosed behind glass. So just a side note for that, one of the great things we did, there used to be a computer room right in the middle toward the back of the facility. And what we did was actually pulled that out because, there were a lot of issues with it and it would get very stale, the air inside of there. So we actually took that entire thing out and completely repurposed every piece of storefront glass that was in that computer room. And now you'll see it throughout the back of the library. We have new study rooms. We have much bigger children's area and Virginia rooms. So we reuse that glass in all of those. We didn't waste any material.
Oh, that's great to hear.
So the other thing was we wanted to enhance security for staff. Mm-hmm. Obviously, being in a big donut right in the middle of the building, God forbid, if anything were to happen, they would essentially be sitting ducks. So we wanted to improve their security. So we moved the circulation desk back by the staff exit. Mm-hmm. So now if something were to happen, they have a clear line of sight to the front door and they can get out the staff area and go to safety if needed. Mm-hmm. So those were kind of the three big things we wanted to incorporate into the design.
So did we end up, everything's laid out so differently now, Mm-hmm. Did we lose any shelving space the way we?
No, actually, it's much more efficient now. And staff can actually see through the shelves all the way to the back of the facility from the circulation desk. We did not lose space. In fact, we gained a ton of programming space at the front. And now that's where most of the seating is for the patrons. So the staff can easily monitor what's happening within the library. So no, we didn't lose any space at all.
That's kind of where my question was coming from, because you look at it and you're like, wow, everything's clumped together in a way that I was like, surely all these shelves, like we had to lose some because they're so organized now. It's hard to say, like, wow, we could have done this before? That's crazy.
Nope, we did not lose any shelving space.
What is personally your favorite change?
I would say my favorite change is that we added 3 more study rooms for folks. And that was one of the things that patrons kept telling us, is that the 2 study rooms we had weren't enough. They were constantly utilized, always booked. So adding 3 additional ones is really a game changer, and it's going to add a lot of space for people who want to study, who want to do work. So that's my number one favorite thing.
Yeah, because you are always studying. Aren't you in school now?
Yeah, I'm working on a doctorate.
So you'll see him at the library in the study rooms.
Absolutely. I don't have to go to Yorktown anymore. So the other favorite change I have is just the children's area. Before, it was much smaller, not really efficient use of space, and this kind of old store yellow, when they wanted you to buy something, this bright yellow wall that really kind of amped up the kiddos. I mean, psychologically, yellow walls amp people up and make them want to purchase things. That's why they use them in grocery stores, or they used to. Now it's this wonderful sea blue and a nice green accent wall. It's very calming and very inviting. So that's the other thing I really love, is how they change the aesthetics of that room.
Libraries should be peaceful, really. Okay, so how long did construction take start to finish? And I mean, you were the one who was getting updates from the contractors. Do you think it was a smooth process?
I mean, there's always difficulties in every construction process, but I will say that the contractor we worked with, David Nice Construction, I will give them completely a shout out. They were absolutely wonderful. Best contractor I've ever worked with in 22 years of government service. They were just incredible. So we started at the end of January. I believe January 31st was the first day that they started doing demolition work. And we finished May 28th. In the contract, it was slated to be done by May 31st. So
early.
And they had to rush some things. They did great work, but they really had to work hard, kind of after hours and things like that, to be able to get done in that timeline.
And they made it happen.
They absolutely made it happen. In terms of it being a smooth process, there were some things we encountered. There were some water leaks that happened in the midst of it that we had to remedy and fix, so we didn't ruin the new carpet that we put in. But all in all, because of how wonderful David Nice Builders and their staff were to work with, we were able to easily overcome any of the speed bumps that we encountered. And there were quite a few.
I mean, when you're watching these, okay, I'm an HGTV girl myself. And when you're watching the shows and they decide to take on a renovation project, always you open a wall and there's a surprise, or you pull up a carpet and the floors are messed up, kind of thing. So
absolutely.
Imagine that happens in a library just as much as it happens in a house.
Well, one of the wonderful things that resulted from that we weren't anticipating, we had a massive water leak in the community room, which is our most heavily used meeting room space. And so the property manager, because we rent the space from a property manager, they actually paid for the renovation of that wall because there was damage to the drywall at the bottom. And then we ended up getting this beautiful new wainscoting in the community room that looks absolutely gorgeous.
It looks great.
It looks like Colonial Williamsburg. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. So that was something we neither put in the scope nor anticipated that we ended up getting out of this process because of a water leak.
That's funny how things work. So we had the ribbon cutting Saturday. Were you able to stop by? Absolutely.
Actually, I was one of the speakers for it. We all kept it very brief because we wanted people to see the new space. But yeah, the ribbon cutting ceremony went really well. We probably had maybe 3 to 4 dozen folks there with us at 9:30 on Saturday morning, listening to our spiels and then touring the new library. So it went incredibly well, and there was great representation. We had a board member there, a board of supervisors member, our chairman, Chris Hudson. We also had the library board president. We had the Friends of the Library president. We had the Main Street Preservation Trust president or executive director. It was fantastic. It was a great event.
it's so fun to celebrate things that have been a long time coming, to be able to sit back and look together and say, oh, wow, as a team, look what we accomplished. So.
And Adrian, if I misspoke in terms of your title, you are the grand poobah of the Main Street Preservation Trust. So if I misspoke on your title, please forgive me.
Yeah, he should just change his badge. I feel like that's a good title. So how do you hope these planned renovations will change how the library functions for Gloucester residents? Because, we talked earlier, library is space for the community.
Yeah, and I think with the renovations, it's actually going to tailor more toward that notion of library as place, as community center. Because of the way it's configured now, it's much more open. There's much more opportunity for people to gather. We have more conference room and study room spaces. So I think it's really going to even further enhance the notion of the main library being as a place for people to come and interact and engage with each other.
Awesome. Did I miss anything you wanted to say about the project?
Just that I'm glad it's complete.
Well, thank you so much for coming. If y'all haven't been, definitely stop by the main library. It's just a beautiful, I don't know, it's nice to walk in and think, this is my library. I get to use this, and they did it for me. Definitely stop by, check out the new spaces, get a book, sign up for summer reading, get a library card, all that stuff.
Absolutely.